What's up, party people and magic makers? Destiny here on this magical Monday, and I want to tell you a story. So, this is a story about a guy who, really got himself stuck. Like, deep just, so deep in the sand pit, kind of stuck. So, as you know, every Monday I come at you with the Magical Monday video to talk all about mindset. And we've been talking about being stuck this whole month. And of course, as always, if you relate to any of this, if you have a comment about this, let me know. Comment and reply below. Also, if you know of anybody that wants to that can use this information, and share it with them. Share this video with them. This is definitely more the merrier. All right, so back to my friend. All right, so this is about 8 years ago, and I was working part-time in a corporate culture. And in this particular place, anytime there was a birthday or somebody was leaving, we would have like a party, right? Like, this is what they do in offices. And so one of the guys that was leaving was my direct boss. And we got to talking, and he was like, "Hey, you made that thing this one time and it was food." He goes, "Would you make that again for my going away party?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can totally do that. That'd be a nice send off." And he's like, "But would you make enough for the whole office?" And I was like, "Okay, we figured it out. No problem." So the day comes, everybody brings their food. Everybody was potlucking, and I bring my dish, and we have it laid out in my office on my large desk, and everybody's coming through to get food and send him off. And so, later on, after all of this was said and done, people were like, "Oh, that was really good. Thank you for bringing it, blah, blah, blah." And I ran into this gentleman at the copy machine, and I was like, "Hey, so what do you think of the food? Was it good? Did you have any?" He goes, "No, I wasn't invited." And I was like, "What?" And he tells me, "I wasn't invited, so I went out and I got my own lunch." And inside my head, I'm like, "Well, that was stupid. Like, why didn't you just come to my office, right? Like, what are you doing?" Like, everybody was invited. It was a going away thing. We don't invite people to the birthdays. You just kind of come into the conference room and you eat. And I looked at him, I'm like, "Why would you do that?" And he goes, "Well, because I wasn't invited." And I was like, "Everybody in the office was invited. This is like a birthday party and a going away party. Like, this is what we do in this office. Everybody just comes. You know what's happening, you just come." And he was like, "No, but my mom always told me that if I wasn't invited, you don't show up." And I was like, "Have you been showing up to all of the other office parties?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, but I got an invite." And I was like, "What are you even talking about?" So it turns out that this one time, because this guy was leaving, we didn't send out the office email to tell everybody, "Hey, this was going to happen." So that's what this dude was waiting for. He was waiting for that email to say that he was invited to go to this party. And I was like, "Can we circle back around? You said that your mom told you that if you weren't invited, then you don't show up to the party." And I was like, "Tell me more about that." When he was 6 years old, six years old, he wanted to go to a party, but he didn't have his invitation. So his mom told him, "Well, then you weren't invited, so you're not going to go to the party." So mom drove him past the party and told him, "See, you can't go because you don't have an invitation." Okay? Let that sink in for a little bit. So some 4 decades later, same guy didn't receive the office email, so he didn't attend the party. And I was like, "Is that working for you? Like, legit, dude, is that working for you?" And he's like, "Well, I mean, I didn't get to try the food and I didn't get to spend time with anybody." I was like, "Again, is it working for you?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "Okay, so you're a grown-ass man now, you're not 6? Maybe do something different." I was like, "Why didn't you just come up and say, 'Hey, is the party today?' And I mean, there's so many ways to go about this." He's like, "I never thought about that." But see, that is what our trauma does. That is it, and it works so beautifully and so perfectly, and it works the same every single time, except people forget. See, our trauma turns into a fear. We create a fear to prevent us from having that trauma again. We're like, nope, we don't want to experience that. So let's stop it before it happens. Except people talk about the fight or the flight, okay? But they forget about the third option, which is the freeze, which is getting stuck, okay? So this guy, 4 decades later, still stuck in the story that his mom told him when he was 6, okay? And it was about a party and not being invited. Can you imagine all of the other bullshit stories and lies that we were told when we were kids that we're still believing in today? And then we freeze because of it. And we stop ourselves because of it. Okay? Not good enough. We went over this last week. Bullshit lie. We create a fear around it because we experienced a trauma. Sometimes it happens in school, right? I've worked with a number of clients where right in that elementary school area, like they didn't want to be called on by the teacher because they didn't want to get the question wrong. Because that then meant that they were not good enough. No, that's not what it means. It just means you got the question wrong. However, for them, that's what it means, and it's their truth because they have experienced it over and over and over and over and over again. And that's what happens. And it works the same every single time. And so this is really great news. And so you're probably like, why is this really great news? No, it's not. It sucks. Yes, I see what you're saying. And it's really great news because it works the same every single time. You can pop in there and be like, I don't want it to work that way now. Because you know what the pattern is. See, it's a pattern. It happens the same every single time. If you think about this, when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? What's the second? What's the third? Do you brush your teeth with your right or your left hand? Do you brush your hair before you brush your teeth? Do you take a shower before you brush your teeth, or do you brush your teeth before you take a shower? Now, what if I told you to scramble that up in the morning? Did you just go like, oh my God, what? Yeah, because see, we operate in patterns, and our fear and our trauma happens in a pattern. So you can go ahead and go boop and stop it and say, no, I don't want that to happen there. Instead, I'd like something else. And that's the very important thing. Last week when I was talking about the tip to like go back in your memory, and like I wanted you to replace it with something else, you've got to replace anything that you do with something else. Because otherwise, your unconscious mind will replace it for you, and it is probably not going to be the best of things. So you want to replace it for yourself, right? And you want to go back and go, hang on, that's not what I want to have happen. I want something else to happen. You can do this with all types of patterns, right? This is why I call myself the pattern breaker, because I can identify the patterns that are going on for you, and we can slide something in there to make it stop, and then have your pattern start in another direction. Right? So if your pattern always went to the left, we can go, nope, I want you to go to the right now. And then we can experience what that is and tweak it along the way to make it work for you. This is the same thing that you can do in the fight, flight, or freeze. Now, those things serve us, right? Like when we're walking out at night and we get this feeling of like, oh, I shouldn't go down that alley. We can like go, okay, I need to run. I need to speed up walking. I need to get out of there, right? Or it prepares us for a fight. But we're not always in fight or flight. It just feels like it. Like this guy not being invited to the party felt like he was in fight or flight and freeze. And it's like, no, man, you're not. But it felt like it in his body because he had experienced it before. So if that is happening to you, where like there's these really small, tiny instances where you're feeling this like twitterpation in your heart, and you're like, oh my God, breathe. Check in with yourself and just ask, is this something that I've experienced before? And if the answer is yes, flip it. Flip it for yourself. Do you want it to happen? If yes, okay, keep going. If no, flip it so it doesn't happen anymore, because you have that power, you have that ability. You bought into that pattern, you can get yourself out of the pattern. Okay, like plain and simple. So please don't be like this guy where 40 years later you are still believing in the same pattern that doesn't serve you anymore. You can do something about it. You can change it. And I suggest you change it sooner rather than later so you can live your life. Yours, not someone else's. That's important. Cool? All right, comment below. Let me know if you use this tool. And until next week, peace.